Good evening. Hope you're all enjoying this lovely blustery weather that suddenly appeared from nowhere. And as we rapidly approach the long weekend of Easter, I hope we're all having, a bit of a chill out time. And those of you that have got kids off school are enjoying, up until today, what was delightful weather. And the weather forecast keeps changing for the weekend, but it is looking promising. But I just couldn't get over the wind this morning. I'm just fingers crossed my little greenhouse is still there when we get home tonight. Right, so this evening we are going to be playing with some bookbinding. This has come about from a couple of comments that I had at the weekend, and it is something I've said about doing many times on air and hearing. Hi Linda, how are you? That I've said about doing, and that is binding greetings cards. So I just raided the drawer in the coffee table because that's generally where things end up, and this is just a selection of some of the greetings cards. It's not my ones for my 50th, they are put away. I do have plans for them, but these are just your your normal birthday type ones. There is a Christmas one on the top there, but I chose that one because it's a bit of a different size and shape. And I always say about making these into books and making them something a bit more than just something that gets thrown in a drawer or in a box. And at the weekend when I was teaching bookbinding, I was asked to try and explain what would you do with all the different size cards, and I actually said, hi Elsbeth, I actually said, well, if I do it as a Facebook Live, it's easier because it's easier to show you and it gave me a chance to get some cards together, show you a few different ideas of what I was thinking about, so that we can have this crossover between bookbinding and card making. And I've said it many times that if you give somebody a card, there is that understanding that it has a limited lifespan. It might be kept, but it's not. A lot of people don't keep them for very long. They end up in the recycling. They just no longer have a purpose, have a place. So if you make them into a book, they have more of a tangible thing that you can sort of hold on to. You can flick through and stuff like that. And I've had a few ideas with different ways that you can join these things together. And I've just remembered I've left some samples downstairs, but that's fine. Hi Sue, hi Rura Jane. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to be using the Cradle and things, but I have got a new tool to show you. So I will do that first. So I am going to flick cameras, and I'm going to, because you've had enough of seeing me, I'm going to come down here. Right. So first thing I'm going to do is actually build a Cradle so that people can see. Because it's really hard to explain this without you seeing it. So, because now the Cradle has an end stop, which basically anybody from the weekend will know, I call that the bottom because it looks a little bit like a bottom, and we use it to butt things up to. Bad joke from the weekend. Right, so now it has the end stop. We have these extra 2 holes in them. And when you're building your Cradle, you need to have them closest to each other. Like that isn't going to work. Like that isn't going to work. Only like that, okay? And then you have your 3 legs. So you want it so that that bit there is closest to the middle, okay? So that they're touching. And then your legs go in. And I always say we've designed this to flat pack. Now, although Paul designed this so that it flat packs and things, the actual tool itself has been around for a very long time. Text message, sorry. But he's made it affordable, collapses, and it's for those people that just want to be able to make books and not worry too much. End stop goes in, and that is your Cradle built. This bit is your piercing guide. Okay, we'll come to that in a minute, but I just thought before I use it. But what is the new tool? It's this. And it's so big I can barely fit it on the camera. Now, actually it goes that way around because I'm right-handed. This has come about because I like to trim my books down. Now, I'm very fortunate. I have a big guillotine that can do it. but not everybody does. So I always say in the workshops, well, you can do it with a knife. Just get yourself a straight edge, you know, just something to cut against, and there you go. But what I've never taken into account is the fact that you need to square things off. And since we've been started doing the double-sided adhesive sheet, which comes in a big roll, I've been having to slice it up. Don't ask how many sheets I did yesterday, quite a lot. And so I've needed to make sure that my lines are perfectly straight. So we've had this cross bit, and as I was doing, I'm like, do you know what, Paul, this would be really handy for bookbinding. Darling, I always say darling when I want something, can you design one so that we can sell this as a tool for trimming up your books? So what do I mean by trimming up your books? We will do it during the demos, but I'm just going to quickly show you with a few bits of paper what I mean. Okay, because when you fold your pages, and this process is usually only done after your book is stitched, because things can move as you're stitching, but I just want to show you how this works because it is quite clever. So when you folded a book, your pages here inevitably aren't perfect, and sometimes it just can look a little more untidy than you would like, and there is something about having a crisp edge. So what you do is you get your book, and this could be a multi-signature one before you add your covers. So this is your text block for those that are, and then this just hooks on the top here so that we know we've got a right angle, and then however much you want to trim off there, you just line up. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more so that you can see, but this is more than I would actually trim off. Then you just take your knife, you hold the handle there so your fingers are well away from the blade. This is 18mm MDF, so you're not going to cut yourself. Okay, and then you just run your knife along the edge there, flick out, and now you have a beautiful crisp edge and a 90-degree right angle. But the great thing is it will also work if you need to trim your top down. So line it up with the fold. So again, lining that up, and you don't press ridiculously hard, just backwards and forwards. And it doesn't matter that you're going backwards and forwards because you're running along that 18mm. Nice crisp, and you would do it on the other end and you would get all your beautiful crisp edges. And it doesn't matter how big a stack, that's going to weight it down, and your hand is out there. So there you go. That is Paul's new tool. I think I called it Paper Edge Guide, something like that. I wanted to give it a fancy name, but I couldn't think of one. Okay, so it's as simple as that, but it's so handy. Okay, straight edge, and you've got that nice handle, and he's shaped the handle nicely. I have to say my one wasn't. Right, okay, so that's praised Paul's designs. Let's make something. So I've got some cards here. Yes, it might be Paul's birthday cards. Well, there's an anniversary one. Right, so let's say that I want to make Paul a little book with some of his birthday cards in. Okay, not sure I'm going to include the businesses one. Which business is it? Don't know. That one's different. And that one's different. So here we go, some birthday cards. Now, if he had loads of birthdays, he's had loads of birthday cards, I might need to make a multi-signature book, and you can still do that. But what we need to look at is how do we group these together so that we can just bind them. But I think we've got, I'm not going to use them all because I've got a few different things to show you, but let's pick 4, and I'm going to pick 4, possibly not the best one to have on the top there. That's just there. Right, the trouble is Paul does, we'll put that one on top. He does makes me laugh, that one. Yeah, honestly, that tool is so handy, and if I've used the one he's done that inspired that idea, and I just see that I'm going to be grabbing that time and time again, because half the time my guillotine is buried, or I haven't got the space to have the guillotine out, and it just, You know, that is so quick and easy. As long as you've got a nice sharp knife, and I get these ones with the snap off blade, and when the end's getting a little bit blunt, pliers, snap off the next one and away you go. They're cheap as chips as well. Right, so let's make a little book for some of these cards. Okay, I'm going to save that one because it's a nice big one and I've got a plan for that. But let's just say he's got these ones. Now, they are all different sizes. So when we come to binding them together, we need to make sure that they're all incorporated. So first things first, we're going to stack them up and see which is the shortest one. The reason we want to know which is the shortest one is that's got to go in the middle so that I can make sure that that is caught with all the binding. Okay, so that's our middle one. Next, we want to really know which is the one that's going to make the best cover. And I actually think that one, because it's a little bit wider. Now I know it's not as tall as the others, but I think it makes quite a nice cover. Okay, if you had a really big one, you could put that on the outside, but obviously that's overhanging a little bit. So we need that one in the middle and then this one on the outside. Now, as tempting as it is to do that, that just, I think, is not as aesthetically pleasing as lining them up. Now, if you didn't want the unevenness of that, you could cut a bigger piece of card to be your cover for this. Okay, but I'm just going to stick straight with all the cards. So this takes a little bit of time just to make it, yeah, I'm happy with that. But I say, if I wanted to, we could come in and add a cover if you wanted to. I'd have to probably use 12 by 12 for that. But I don't want to trim any of these down, but we're just going to keep this one nice and simple. So we've got our cards all stacked together as we want them as a book. Open it up to the middle. Now, as tempting as it is, again, to butt all that up to the end, honestly, for cutting straight edges, it's so brilliant. But I'm not going to butt them up to the end this time because I haven't got them all lined up because they're all different sizes. So this is like a junk journaling application. Right, I'm going to put my piercing guide in and I am going to want 5 holes. Now, this little one in the middle here, which is from Bumble, Marvin's mate, that's the one I need to look at because if I start doing holes up here and here, it's not going to catch the ones I want. So I'm just going to, now this is going to take a little bit more force because I'm going through all those cards, but not an excessive amount. Okay, so I want a middle one. I want one near the bottom of that card, one near the top of that card. Okay, let's just have a look. I've got my 3 holes. Now, actually looking at it, I do have one that falls in the middle there. So I'm going to just, yeah, I think I'm just going to line it up about like that. And then I'm going to have one there and one there. Now, so even though I'm going through loads and loads of card there, it has gone through quite easily, all the way through to the side. Okay, and then I'm just going to choose my thread, and remember with a pamphlet it's generally about 3 times the length of your spine, and I'm just threading up my needle. And with book binding, we never tie a knot in the end because we don't want to pull it through. And I want this to be the knot hidden in the middle there. So I'm going to start at the middle, go to that hole. Now, because I'm going through card here, it is, I should have wiggled me all a little bit. It's a little bit stiff because I'm using the big needle, but it is doing it. Okay. Then back through here, remembering to skip your middle hole so you end up with your knots on the outside, and through there. Where's my end gone? Okay, back through that hole. Oh, it's noticeably stiffer than paper, but achievable. Through here. So we're going to come out of here so you can see what I'm doing. Now that big stitch in the middle, I just need to make sure I've gone either side of it, and then we can tie our knot. So when I'm teaching bookbinding, I always say don't tie with loose ends. Only tie when you've got two tight ends, i.e. every end is already part of a stitch. Just means that you're not going to accidentally pull that through. Okay, and here we go. Paul now has his lovely birthday card book. And what it means is you're flicking through all the pictures and then you get to all the sentiments. Yeah, so there you go. He's got his little book and you can keep them, and it's just much nicer to flick through them like that. Okay, so that's one way of incorporating bookbinding with your cards. So that's pre-existing cards. Okay, right, let's say I'm going to use which one? I will use the business one for this. It's not the most exciting card, but let's say this is something, you know, somebody's leaving, or it's a special anniversary or something like that, and you've got one nice card and you want everybody to sign it. And we know what happens when everybody signs it. You have a tiny little bit to I've no idea what this card is, tiny little bit to write into and stuff like that. But if it's in like a wedding or a really significant birthday, you might actually want it to be a little bit more special. You might want them to write proper, you know, nice messages or tell little stories and use it a little bit more like a guest book. But the trouble is with a guest book is if you're having it at the actual event and the event involves alcohol, inevitably there will be all sorts written in that guest book, and it might not be something that you can pull out all the time. Whereas if you have a card that you send round in advance, like a guest book, people have got time to think about it and make it truly meaningful. You've then also got something to read at the event. So my idea with this is that you have your card, not an advertising birthday card, but I hasten to add. Okay, now handily, that is an A5 card, but I still want to take a little bit off there because I do want this to be slightly smaller to go inside there. So, and because again, normally I'd make do with that because I wouldn't want to be cutting up paper. Okay, so I'm just taking a little bit off the edge there. And I'm going to take a bit off the bottom so that it's going to be nicely within the card. Okay, so there we go. Just push it away with your knife. So now that is slightly smaller, and if this was something other than a happy birthday business card, you could put vellum in here. You could have a nice printout, you know, saying, you know, to celebrate Mary and Martin's golden wedding anniversary, or whatever you want it to say. And again, we're going to put it all together so you can see by me trimming that down, it's all together. Again, I am not going to use the end stop for this because my cover is slightly bigger. I want this to be really special. So instead of binding this with thread, I'm actually going to bind this with ribbon. Okay, but we're going to start exactly the same way. Now the piercing guide now has A5 measured with 5 holes, so it's perfect. So I don't even have to think about it. Again, I'm able to go through all these layers. No, it's all bound, it's all lined up. But I am going to wiggle these a little bit. If you know you're going to be passing something big through it, you can give it a little wiggle. Okay, and I've got some ribbon here, and just because I think ribbon will look really nice. Okay. My poor scissors. My poor scissors, they're all so abused. So, big needle means that my ribbon can go through. Now this time I think it's going to be quite nice with a bow tied on the back. So instead of starting on the inside, I'm actually going to start on the outside this time. It's exactly the same bind, which is the quickest bind. So just wiggle that through. Leave a nice tail because we're going to tie a knot. Not a knot, a bow. Now, when you're using ribbon, it's entirely your own feelings, but you might want to try and make sure that the ribbon's laying perfectly flat. Okay, and if you're the sort of person that likes that to be sort of all neat and tidy, just remember to check both sides. Okay, now this is where ribbon gets a little bit harder, because as you're passing the needle through, try not to stab through the stitch at the back there. Just can sometimes look a little unsightly. So we're then going to hop across that middle again and back into that next hole. But you can just see ribbon looks so much prettier, and it is no different on the bind. You just have to just pay a little bit more attention to where your needle's going, just because you don't necessarily want to split your ribbon. And again, a little bit tougher on the pull through, but if you wiggle your needle, you're all like I did, should be fine. Okay, back through that middle hole. I'm going to leave that line flat so I can see what I'm doing. So again, here's our big stitch. We do need to make sure that that passes underneath that, so that when we tie our bow, it is going to sit nicely across there. So we're going to tie that, and then we're going to do, to make a pretty bow, we're going to do bunny ears. And that's the way where you have the two bunny ears, you cross them, you tuck them through, and it just means you can have your two tails sitting on the same side. Trim your ends. Fold it down, and now you've got your lovely book inside a card where people can write all their nice things. They can stick photos in there. It can become like a little journal, but it is a beautiful card. I know this isn't a beautiful card, but you know what I mean. I was just raiding the drawer to see what I had. I just think that's a really nice way. And then again, you're not going to have the problem we had here where we've got loads of different cards. They will keep this one card with all those beautiful sentiments in, and it will just be really, really meaningful. Okay, so that's before you send it out. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's go with, what's that one? So let's do a similar idea, but instead of using ribbon, I thought we could add some beads to this one. Happy anniversary, 2 peas in a pod. Right, so again, I'm going to need some pages. Obviously for demoing, I am just using copier paper. So imagine it is our 25th wedding anniversary, which it isn't yet, but we are on 22 years. That's a long time. But we're going to add some beads to this one. And again, just because I'm using cards as covers here, doesn't mean this isn't a journal you could make. I'm not going to make it too fat. So I've said about doing beads before, and I always say, remember to check your beads, your needle passes through your beads. So all of these ones have been checked. But when I'm checking, I know this might seem a silly thing, but normally you'd think, does the needle pass through that? Oh, put the needle through and pass through. Takes a little bit longer, and if you do get so far and your needle starts to get stuck, because that's got a point, it might get stuck. So what I actually do is I hold it with the eye end and then just poke the eye through, and you'll know without having to keep pulling the needle right through, I can check if those are all going to pass through, and they do. Nice little collection there. That's why I've chosen this card, because all those beads match. Okay, so let's, again, my papers are too big. So first things first, let's trim it down. Let's give myself a rough idea. So yeah, I've got to take quite a bit off. So hook it up there. And right, now I'm doing this side first, but actually if you're, let's do an example. If your folding is not particularly great, can you see that? How crooked that is? If I hook that up there, that's actually going, you can see what an angle that's putting my pages at. So what you actually want to do is start with the one side we know is straight, which is the fold, and trim using that as your straight first. So you would trim, make sure that's straight, trim that. Now we know that's at right angles to that, we can then go round. It's this, and this is the sort of thing that is a bit like when you're cutting a tag. If you get this, if you start at the wrong side, you're just going to keep going round and round and round, trying to make this perfectly square. Well, not square, but square on itself. So you can see now that corner's nice, right angles. Last one off, and now we've got beautiful, lovely right angles. No messing about. Okay, so I should always, just force of habit, go to that side first. And I'm going to take off a little bit off both sides, just in case I haven't folded it perfectly. I'm sure you appreciate I fold a lot of paper, but sometimes we get slapdash and we just get a little bit carried away. Honestly, where is this tool bin? This is like the Cradle. Where is this tool bin all my life? I mean, I know I've got a guillotine, but I suspect this will get used a lot more than the guillotine. And I know he's sized it with A5 in mind, but you can do smaller. Well, you've seen when we're doing the smaller sides. And if you're worried because you're left-handed, this is why it's got a guide top and bottom, so that if you need to use it the other way, you've still got one at the top there. Okay, just to make sure. Oh, didn't quite take enough off. That's because I was too busy talking. So how much do I need to take off? That's a good amount. Whoop. Now, because I've not got many pages, you can see the knife's gliding through. But if that was thicker, I just a few times. Okay, so now that's going to fit in there really nicely. So we need to pierce this up again. And again, because our cover or our card is slightly bigger, we're not going to use the end stop. And now my 5 holes, I don't know if you can see, that's a bit close to the edge there. So I am going to use this side, and I'm going to do 1 hole, 2, 3 holes, that one, and that one should be nicely evenly spaced. So this time we're going to do beads. I did move there when I was, that's fine. Now again, we all know that I like my variegated thread. Honestly, I know, why is it taking him so long? If you shout loud enough, he'll hear you. He's only downstairs. Yes, why is it taking him so long to do this? I don't know. Not fair. Okay, let's start adding some beads. So I'm going to start on the inside here because I don't want to have to try and knot with beads there. It's probably a bit long. I've made my thread a little bit longer this time because obviously it's got pass-through beads. Now every time I'm on the outside, I need to concentrate because this is where I'm going to thread the beads on. Okay, so if you've got a peg or a clip or something like that, for this time you might want to clip your pages. But because you've pierced through with the cradle and they've sort of locked in, it is a little bit easier. Okay, so every time I'm on the outside, I'm going to find some beads. Okay, now I'm not going to overly think this and do a pattern. I am just going to make sure that they all fit on. I think I quite like that one. Okay, let's make sure that fits on. Yep, that fits. So now we're going to pass back through there. Let me just show you what I'm doing. So because everything's been moving around a little bit, you might need to, for this first one, just sort of juggle things around a little bit so that you can pass into that hole. Okay, hold that tail and give it a little tug. So that's put those two beads into place. Right, I'm now on the inside of my book, so I don't need to worry about anything until I get to the outside again. So this is all a little bit floppy at this point. So I say, if you're happier having a little peg or something on it to hold it, you can do, but it's not the end of the world. Right, so I'm now on the outside, so I'm going to find some other beads. Really like these ones, quite heavy though. These are all just recycled beads. So I'm going to put a few littler ones on this time. So again, I'm just sort of keeping a rough eye on how long. Oh, I think we can get one more little one on. Let's go for that little wooden one. Okay, yep. So now I can pass back through that hole. So I'm just constantly looking on the inside there. Okay, give it a little tug. So exactly the same bind back through that end there. Okay. Now sometimes you'll get confused because you'll see that that's just meant you've picked up your tail. See, just it already feels really nice. Give that a little tug. So I'm back on the outside here. Only thing that I would say when you're doing something like that is very easy to lose track of what hole you need to go through next. So I wouldn't suggest. No, it's just the size, Maxine. We don't really do the mini now. It is all the standard we tend to do now. The mini was just done as sort of a travel size one, but actually it was a little bit more limiting. But it does exactly the same thing. And the mini never got an end stop on it. Because it was kind of done for a specific thing, i.e. taken on a ship, because it was smaller. But actually I now just use the standard for everything. So that's quite a nice little set of beads there. Okay, so I'm all right because I've obviously done this bind a lot, so I know I need to go in that end one. But if in doubt, just check on the inside there, and you can see which hole we've missed, because obviously here it's looking like we could go either way, but that inside check shows us that we need to go. Who does round beads? Get there. So again, just ease your needle through, because things will have moved because we've not secured everything fully yet. So just, and when you're dealing with beads, it does make it a little bit more slippery. Okay, so now we're back here, back out here. So now we can see we've got one last string of beads to do. Quite like that pattern, but I do really want one of these big, these are lovely, these beads, but you can hear the weight of them. Another wooden one. A little one, and let's have a quick check. Oh, I think we could probably get one more little one. Let's have one of those whitish natural colours on. Okay, so that's all the beads on now, and then we're going to come back through that middle hole. Just make sure you've gone through all your layers, because as I say, because we're moving things around a lot here, there is a danger that, did you hear that bounce across the floor? Right, that you're going to miss a layer. When I say miss a layer, what I mean is you come out here instead of in the middle. It's easy done. Right, and I've also managed to come through my purple thread, so I just need to undo that. Did you see that? I'd actually gone, as I came through, because I'm dealing with the beads and things like that, it's a little bit I'm going to put those in the bag, bear with me a minute. In you go. But I still need to pass this underneath here and tie across, making sure I'm giving it a good tug. Remember that what I said about tight to tight? It means now I can give that a good tug. It's not going to undo anything. All it's going to do is tighten up those beads on the outside. And we're going to bring that through, give that a little tie. There we go. And then trim those off, and then we can have a look at how it looks on the outside. Now I say we've done this on a card, but this could so easily be your journal as well, and those beads are just lovely. You know, it's just giving it that extra in, and then you've got your little book inside, so that could be where you put your notes. And obviously if it's first anniversary, paper is the anniversary anyway, so that's perfect. So there you go, just some little ideas for ways of making cards and books work together. So you've got your using ribbon to add, and this could be a way of adding in your insert. It doesn't have to be a book. This could be, I mean, this one has already got an insert in, but it's a folded piece of paper. You could easily take that out and stitch that in nicely with ribbon. I mean, it is lovely that, because it's got the little pictures. But also binding your cards together so that they're a little book. And I just love the fact that you see the pictures first, and then you're more likely to read the sentiments at the end there. So that's another way. Now this one, I was looking at this, because obviously this is, if I look at this, I'll get that thread later. It's an awkward size. It's, oh, I'm sorry, camera. It's too long for A4. So what could we do about that? So obviously this is a pre-existing card that has been written in, but if it wasn't, you could redo it and have them stitched in a different way. But a simple way of doing this, I'm just going to get these the width I want. Okay, now I'm going to have to do this in a 2. So I mean, you could also use this to draw, and I'm just going to do this in a 2. So first pass, then I'm going to move it down. I mean, because we're going length on A4 here. Probably I need it a little bit shorter. So I want a book to fit inside here. I'm going to take a bit more off that. How can we do this so we don't have to go out and buy expensive A3 paper, and we can just make use of what we've got? So I'm just going to do that. So, because this is something that you might have to do when you're doing. So I just need to get one the right size. Okay, nice. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a cascade. So that's the one. The next one, we want it, let me move that so you can see. We want it staggered a little bit, so it's going to be a little cascade. Okay, can you see that? I've spaced that a little bit further along. Okay, and then next one a little bit further on. Next one a little bit further on. And then one more a little bit further on. So you can see, obviously you could measure that perfectly. And then I just find the point that I've already had, fold there, and now I've got a little Cascade album that is going to fit inside there, and it's stitched in exactly the same way. But now can you see those different pages? Let me quickly stitch it. Take 2 seconds. Open it up to the middle. Now, although this is only a narrow book, I am still going to do 5 holes. Some people would do a 3 hole, but I do 5 unless I genuinely can't fit 5 in. So middle, top, bottom, and then I'm just going to adjust to about there to get me my evens. Okay, quickly, should we do this with ribbon? No, I'll do it with thread. I was just thinking because one of my threads has just rolled over, and that is why you always bring 2 threads with you. Actually, that needle's already got a load of thread on it. No, it did have. Oh dear. It is the end of a long day. But, you know what? It's a bank holiday weekend. And not just any old bank holiday. It's Easter, which means, I don't mean chocolate eggs, I mean it's Friday and Monday. Right, leave your tail. Through you go. Oops, pulled a bit hard there. So otherwise it's just going to make it trickier for me to tie. Okay, don't forget to skip. Out to that side. So this is a really, I mean obviously you don't have to do this with long thin cards, but I just think it's a way of making use of the same normal paper you've got, but actually you end up with a really nice style of book. And then back through that middle one. Remembering to try and come up either side of that big stitch. Honestly, that was some kind of fancy flourish there. Round we go. Eek, donk. And snip that off. Oh, my fingers have gone really slippery. No, it doesn't mean double donuts for Paul. Like, what? So double donuts for Paul at a workshop? That would mean like what? 7, 8 donuts? I don't think so. We do extensive research in my in-person workshops about donuts, and we have discovered that Sainsbury's donuts are the best because they use actual sugar, not icing sugar, so they are fabulous. And then if there's any left over from the workshops, and I try and persuade people to take them home, but if they don't, if you stick them in the air fryer for about a minute or two to warm up, if they've gone a little bit stale, they come out tasting like seaside ones. Lovely. Right, so here's our book card. So normal card, just a shop bought one. And then in here we've got our little Cascade book, and you see how the pages, I've actually done 1 page too many, but now you've got that lovely one that you could, you know, do little messages on, but it's just a nice way of extending your paper quite easily. So again, that could be printed up, that could be, but it's a really nice way of souping up your little ones to make them just a little bit more interesting and extend your paper. So there's some ideas of how to transform cards into books and books into cards. So obviously any of our cards that we make, you could stitch a book into the inside, and I have got some samples downstairs. I'll take some photos of them and upload them. But yeah, it's just that such a simple way, and just means that now everybody's taking the price off. You know, a relatively cheap shop bought card. So if you haven't got time to make a card, or you're not sure the person would appreciate a handmade card, or you don't know what they like and you just want to buy a shop one, you can still craft it up yourself. You can add beads down the side. You can stitch in. So this didn't have an insert. You could easily stitch in an insert. So just because we make books doesn't mean it's just for making books. You can say, you know, if you do your parchment, you could then stitch your parchment inside. So that was all the books I wanted to show you, but I will do a quick recap. Hang on, let me just read this message. I've been clearing out my mother's house and came across a shoebox full of cards from her birthdays, Mother's Day and other celebrations. Didn't know how to keep them. Oh, that would be so beautiful. Yeah, obviously if you've got a lot, you could do multi-signature. So when I say multi-signature, I mean group them together into your little things and then make them all up into a big book, and they would be amazing. You might want to, if some of them are quite old, reinforce it with a little bit of tissue along the side. But that would just be absolute. And yeah, and it means that for that I would definitely do an outer cover, because this is nice, it's fun, but it's not necessarily particularly aesthetic if you want to have it out on the shelf. So I would have added an extra cover to that, or chosen that one. Hang on. Because obviously all the others would fit in. So sort through them and find some that would be nice covers, because that would have been, you know, a nicer. I'm just going to leave that one there, although that's my favourite, and that sums Paul up. But yeah, so I think that would be absolutely. Is there a way of adding a backstop to the cradle? So if you've got the cradle without a backstop, it's not glamorous. Standard box at the end. It's not quite as glamorous as an actual backstop, but it works in an emergency. But if not, speak to me at the next workshop. If you can, Linda, next time you come to a workshop, bring your old cradle. I'll do an exchange program, because I can use ones without. Right, so quick recap on, only because I think we all need to hail the amazingness of I can't even remember what I've called it. It is, oh, what did I call it? It's on the website. Hang on, this is bad. I'm looking it up on my website as we speak. Hang on, no, not connections. I've done that today. Bear with me. All right, so Facebook Live, 16th of April. It is called the Page Edge Guide. I don't think that's a glamorous enough name for it. But yes, so it just means, and although it's not got a metal edge or anything there, it's just 18mm MDF, which means that you are well, look how far away your fingers are from that blade. And you've got that handle on there. It's not got, sorry, what you can't see is that made the whole desk wobble. Not that that didn't move. It just, honestly, I've been using it on the slippery double-sided adhesive. So that's the new thing for today, and it's just one of those little tools. Again, you could use it for any trimming, but also if you don't want to cut with a knife, let's see if I can do this. This is a little bit harder to do while reaching over. So let's say I don't want to cut with a knife. I want to have my edges torn, but I want them again to be neat and tidy. You can do a few at a time. Don't rush at the end. Don't know if you saw there, but I started to rush, which meant I've just, and now I've got my torn edge, except there because I rushed. So I've got that nice torn edge, but it's still square. Doesn't have to be scruffy if you're going to tear it, but you've got that nice edge there. Add your ink to it and away you go. Thank you, Maxine. You're quicker on there than I was. So yeah, so that's it. But I just, yeah, I wanted to do the cards tonight, but then when I'd been using this, I've got a hair there. Sorry, keep scratching. yeah, he just, and I'm like, I went up to this one, darling, and he knows that I'm after something. I also took toast and coffee with me, and that's when he was suspicious. Right, the only other thing I want to remind you of is a couple of the things that were really, really popular on Hobby Maker on Thursday. The double-sided adhesive sheet, we do have plenty of that still in stock, as we do, well, I say we have plenty because Paul made up a load more, as we do the die release as well, 10 metres on there. The airbrush misters, there is literally only a handful left, literally. Peg for sure, I like it. Meet Peg. Peg it is now. I like an acronym. So yeah, so check out those if you're after them. Otherwise, have an amazing Easter. The weather looked, it was going to be raining, but I looked today because I might need to mow the lawn. It's only that big, don't worry. And it looked more promising. So hopefully you can. And those of you that partake of a nice bit of chocolate or a nice dinner on Sunday, enjoy. And I will be back this time next week. Not 100% sure whether I can persuade Paul to do anything new for that, but I'm sure we'll find something. Hope you take some inspiration from making these cards as books and things like that, because I just think it's such a crossover that works so nicely. I've got some amazing books to make over the next few weeks as well, because I was given a load of vintage board games that are too tatty to be used as board games, but the covers and the boxes and stuff. And there is an amazing one called Careers, riveting game where you can choose whether you want to be a farmer, big in business, Hollywood film star, or the first man on the moon. That dates it slightly, but the board is beautiful, so they're going to be made up into books as well. So watch this space. I will post them on Facebook and Instagram, etc. In the meantime, I will get this video downloaded and uploaded to YouTube. I was going to try and be brave and go live on YouTube as well, but I chickened out. I'd got it all set to go, and then I'm like, no, I'm not sure what I'm doing. So I will get that up and running. But in the meantime, also check out next Sunday, we have our first online stamping workshop, which is where you will be using your stamps from home. And I will just show you loads of different techniques, 4 hours jam-packed with techniques so that you can get the most out of your stamps. And what I'm really looking forward with that one is actually seeing what other people do with other stamps as well. So, because obviously I'll be using my stamps, but it'll be really lovely to see. So if you can join us for that, check that out on the website as well. And in the meantime, happy Easter. Don't eat too much chocolate, and hope the Easter Bunny is kind to you. Take care, and I will see you next week.